A person stands at a wooden podium on a small stage. The background is dark. The setting appears to be indoors, possibly a presentation or speaking venue.
Olson, I'm with the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail and Corps of Discovery 2, 200 years to the future. I want to welcome you here today. I had a really good opening line, but it's rained so much I'm going to pass on that opening line. My job this morning is just to say hello and to welcome you, and we really are glad that you're here. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers that will be here in Fort Benton through the 12th of this month before we go up to Rocky Boy for a 4-day weekend and then back to Great Falls, and we'll be there June 25th through July 24th. We hope you come back to see us at all of those venues. We have literally dozens of unique programs at each one of these venues, so I just wanted to make sure you know about that. And what I want to do right now is to open with a blessing, and Clint Brown, who is a Montanan, will come forward to do that. And if, ladies, you'd make sure your husbands have their hats off.
A person in a yellow jacket and blue pants stands at a wooden podium on a small stage with professional lighting. Another person sits to the right. The setting appears to be an indoor venue with blue decorative elements in the background.
I want to thank the Creator for the weather that we have today, the good moisture that we're getting in Mother Earth. I want to thank all the people that came here today. We would like to ask the Creator to have special blessings on people who travel long ways, those people that are away from their homes and their families. And ask that when they get home that those things may be better than the way they left them. I'm going to go ahead and say a prayer, my own prayer. Pray along with me. I was always told as a young man that there's one Creator. No matter which way you choose to talk to Him or believe in Him, it all goes to the same place. Hey, hey, he lost y'all. Oh, it's in it. Oh, hey, the busy one. Oh, hey, you want sana? Be not sana. It's in it. No, Lewis Clark. No. Yakna here. Be it's in. Oh, it's so. Oh, it's in it. Be not anything. Not anything. Oh, so much in it. Strength and courage. Creator. Be not so. It's oh no, oh, it's in. All the people get up and speak here that the message they'll get their message across to the people. Say, that's it. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to especially thank, from the Native American point of view, I want to thank the National Park Service and the people that are doing this, doing the Corps 2, the traveling along the trail. I truly believe it's a great chance for our people, not only the Native American people, but the people from Fort Benton, the people from Great Falls, the people whomever, wherever they stop. It's a great chance for us to tell our story from a local point of view, as opposed to something that they might read, that little piece in the history book or that little piece in the newspaper. Once again, I want to thank all the people behind the scenes, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be standing here today. Thank you.
Well, Clint said it best. This is the tent of many voices, but it is one voice. And that's the voices that have come together to tell the stories in every aspect. We are very, very honored to have the National Park Service here, the BLM, and the other federal agencies that have partnered with Chouteau County and Cascade County. And particularly, you're sitting here along the banks of the Missouri River that made this all possible between both counties and to make the signature event, this 10th National Signature Event, possible. We have been working for 3 years. Peggy Bourne is our executive director, and she'll be talking later. We have put a tremendous amount of effort into making this one of the most pleasurable, most memorable, and to, as I would say, put your own signature on this event. We're going to start out today with the Chouteau County Commissioners, and that's where you are today. You're in.
A person stands at a wooden podium with an official seal, speaking into a microphone. They wear a tan jacket over a black shirt. The background is dark, with stage lighting visible above.
Chouteau County, Fort Benton, Montana, and you're on the Chouteau County Fairgrounds. And so we're going to start with our story. The chairman of the Chouteau County Commissioners is Jim O'Hara. Jim O'Hara is not with us today. He is away on another duty. But he has been sitting for 3 years on what is called Explorers Council. And that was made up of county leaders and city leaders, agency leaders from both counties, from Chouteau County and Cascade County. And every month for 3 years, there would be a 2 to 3 hour meeting, and Jim was usually there. And it was from efforts such as Jim O'Hara, speaking for Chouteau County, and myself, Valerie Morger, speaking for Chouteau County also, that we came up with what are now the activities and the events that you will be attending in the next 34 days. We were very, very pleased with the representation that Jim O'Hara brought to the Explorers Council and for you, Chouteau County. He has been very eloquent. He has been very proud. He is a farmer from out going towards Geraldine out east, and so he wears that proudly, and he does a wonderful job. I am sorry that he's not here today. He has been called over because of the wonderful weather that we've been blessed with as a farmer. We really believe that this is a wonderful thing. And so don't feel bad, you guys from Oregon or National Park Service or Corps 2 people. You guys, we welcome you, and we welcome the rain. He's been called over actually to Highwood, Montana, which would have been the scene also of Shields Creek, but I think Shields Creek is overflowing now. And he's been called over there to monitor that area and to and to see if they're going to have to do something special with Highwood. So that's where he is today. But if you have a chance to see Jim O'Hara, please tell him thank you for his 3 years of attending those meetings and talking about Chouteau County and bringing the best to those meetings. I'm going to turn the podium over now to another commissioner. We have 3, and the next commissioner is Harvey Worrell, and he is from Loma. Harvey?
Greetings and welcome to Chouteau County. Myself and the other commissioners extend a warm and rainy welcome to you. Jim O'Hara, chairman of the Board of Commissioners, was to open today and to
A person wearing glasses, a brown jacket, and red shirt stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal. They are speaking into a microphone against a dark blue backdrop.
explain our involvement with Explore the Big Sky, but as you know, he was called away. As you know, we wear many hats as commissioners. Presently, Commissioner O'Hara is dealing with flooding emergencies in his district, along with there's 5 or more bridges out and roads, there are a lot of water running over the roads, and they're starting to evacuate some areas. Chouteau County is the 10th largest county in Montana. It comprised of 3,927 square miles and has a population of 5,576 of the nicest people you ever want to meet. Maybe. There are 56 counties in Montana, and this county alone is larger than 3 of the smallest states in the nation. One of those states is Rhode Island, which has more population than all of Montana, and it's a third the size of Chouteau County. One of the problems the commissioners face is maintaining 2,400 miles of gravel roads. Although the rural population may have a difficult time traveling on muddy roads, no one would dare call us to complain on the conditions. This moisture is really needed here. We've been going through so many years of drought. Well, we didn't expect it, so farming is our mainstay in Chouteau County, and all three of us would like to all three of our commissioners are farmers. So therefore, I'd like to introduce my fellow commissioner, Ken Evans, and he will talk about farming in Chouteau County. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey, and again, welcome to Chouteau County. Agriculture is our mainstay, and one of the requests that
A person wearing glasses and a gray blazer stands at a wooden podium with a seal, speaking into a microphone. The background is dark with visible overhead lighting and cables.
was made of the Lewis and Clark when they made the travel to the West Coast was to look for future agricultural lands. And unbeknown to them, as they came through this and looked this area over, this has become the golden triangle of Montana, which raises a high protein, high quality winter wheat that's sought after by many foreign countries. We are ranked #1 in the state for grain production and 33rd for cattle production. We have a total cash sales of $58 million, of which $44 million of it is wheat or grains and $14 million is livestock. There's 790 farms, so it's a pretty big, sparse area with large farms. And this rain you're seeing is a miracle. You know, a week ago, a lot of us were looking at crops and pastures that were disappearing and drying up, and we could see our income flying away and thinking, boy, here goes another bad year. We've been through a lot of them already. And when that happens, the local townspeople, the local businesses suffer, the schools suffer because of can't pay taxes, and just nobody has any money to spend. So we have a miracle here. We had a bumper crop started this spring, and now we have a prospects of a really good crop, maybe again with this kind of rain, if we can get some more rain as this goes along. So somebody said, well, this is $1 million rain. I don't agree. When I looked and seen what $58 million worth of ag products out of Chouteau County, I'd say this is maybe a $30 million rain. So with that, I'd like to thank you for coming. Have a good time, enjoy yourselves, and come back again. We'd sure like to see you. Thank you.
My name's Rick England. I'm chairman of the Chouteau County Fair Board. Where you're sitting right now is fair property owned by the county of Chouteau County. I've been asked by Lori Hardy to do this. She seems to get me into a few things, and she's a good friend of mine. Upon looking for the first fair ever in Chouteau County, that date is a little bit vague, as the first fair was held in Chinook, Montana, as our county high school was in Havre. This apparently was to pacify early attempts at a county division, as at that time Chouteau County was huge. Chouteau County in 1876 reached from the crest of the Rockies to near Malta, down along the Missouri River and over to Arrow Creek. In 1893, Teton County was formed off the west end. In 1911, an election determined the...
A person in a brown jacket and yellow shirt stands at a wooden podium with a microphone, looking downward. The setting appears to be indoors with a dark blue fabric backdrop and overhead lighting visible.
Creation of Hill and Blame County, effective in 1912. And so that brings us to the Chouteau County Fair. The first Chouteau County Fair ever to be held in Fort Benton was reported in the River Press September 18, 1912. It was held in the Armory downtown, as there were no fairgrounds per se. It says The general desire, and this is from the River Press, the general desire to participate in the Chouteau County Fair is one of the most gratifying features of the undertaking. The funds necessary for holding the fair was subscribed by the Fort Benton citizens in the belief that the residents of the other parts of the county would respond with exhibits that would make it all a success. And this belief was amply justified by the pleasant displays in the various departments. Summarizing the first fair, the River Press stated, "Band concerts by the 2nd Regimental Band during the time of the fair was in progress furnished excellent music entertainment for the crowd in attendance. The program of sports, races, and additional attractions. The first Chouteau County Fair is such a successful project that its annual reoccurrence on a larger scale is assured," and we've never missed one since that date. The fair property was then purchased for the price of $1,500 December 14, 1912. On April 16th, Henry Hagan was hired to build a fence around the perimeter, and there's some old pictures up at the Ag Museum that shows just a basic building out in the middle and a painted white fence, all kind of like out in the middle of a prairie out here. It was reported again by the River Press, September 17, 1913, that the second annual fair was a huge success, including horse racing, motorcycle racing, and many festivities. And I would like to note that at that time the commissioners appointed the Chouteau County Fair Board, which consists of a 5-member board throughout the community, ranging from Highwood, Carter, Big Sandy, Fort Benton, Geraldine areas. And that 5-member board in turn hires a staff, and our budget is supported by the county with the funds that we bring in, and this is how the fair has been since 1912. And at that time the commissioners appointed superintendents to handle each one of the events, sheep, cattle, horses, and whatnot. And my great uncle, Jurgen England, was chairman of the sheep division. So I've kind of enjoyed this project. Our mission statement as a fair is, the purpose of the Chouteau County Fair is to provide educational, entertainment, and recreational opportunities for the general public and preserve the heritage of Montana agriculture.
A person in a brown jacket and yellow shirt stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. The background shows a dark blue tent interior with overhead lighting and cables.
This is accomplished while promoting and showcasing the talents, interests, and accomplishments of the residents of Montana, especially Chouteau County residents. Lori also asked me to touch a little bit on some of the past events we've had over the years. And I guess first comes out was horse racing was very popular in the area. The JC Demo Derby then took off. Chouteau County Tractor Pullers Association held huge tractor pulls, which was some of the most popular in the Northwest. We still have rodeos, moxies, team roping, many horse events, musical entertainment, 4-H and youth of all kinds come to the fairgrounds and use our facilities. In the 93 years since the first fair was held in Fort Benton, there has been an ongoing commitment to improve the fairgrounds, and this continues today. In the past few years, the fairground has seen many improvements, including the restoration of the grandstands and other historic buildings, the building of the canoe launch campgrounds, new fair office, restroom, and shower facility, and a brand new 70 by 120 building right behind you for year-round use, is with the cooperation of the county commissioners, past and present fair board members, managers, secretaries, the residents of Chouteau County, and the huge support of the Lippert Claywater Foundation. It is with that we have this facility we are proud of, and we hope you enjoy while visiting our great county. We welcome you to our fairgrounds, and we hope you enjoy your time with us. Thank you. I now would like to introduce Steve Adams, Superintendent of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail of Core Discovery 2.
Thank you, Mr. England, and welcome to the Tent of Many Voices. I want to thank Clint Brown for his blessing to begin this program. You know, it's folks like Clint that really bring this place to life, and they come up here and they share their culture with us. And we just really appreciate that, Clint. Thank you very much. Thanks, Val, for the work that you've put in on this and the other 353 days, is it? A year-long, almost a year-long celebration, it seems like it. I'd like to thank the county commission.
A person in a tan hat and dark green shirt stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. The setting appears to be indoors with dark blue fabric backdrop and overhead lighting.
Commissioners for what they've done, Mr. England for allowing us to be here at his facility, and are we still at 100% in our venues for rain? Okay, all right. We've been to I don't know how many venues, but it has either rained or snowed at each and every one of them. So somebody suggested we may want to call this the tent of many rains. I'd like to thank also our colleagues who are with us today and with us often on the trail, from Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Reclamation. Army National Guard has just been an outstanding supporter of what we've been doing across the country, and it just wouldn't be possible without them. Thanks to Peggy for all the work that she's done and will continue to do over the next few days. It's a tough job, and you know, give Peggy all the support that you can. I also want to thank, Clint talked about some of the folks behind the scene, and the folks that you see in the blue jackets and the blue shirts. That's the legacy staff, and they've been moving this exhibit across the country for the past couple of years, and they've done a superb job in getting us there on time, getting this thing set up and prepared to go. And especially want to thank our Core 2 staff, the folks in the gray and the green. They have been doing this job day after day for the past several years, and you can appreciate, I think, being away from home a year at a time almost, and being continually, you're either working or you're driving, and they've just been a marvelous staff. And again, it wouldn't be possible without these folks doing all of their good work. So thank you very much for what you do. And with that, I'd like to introduce the Explore the Big Sky coordinator, Peggy Bourne.
Good afternoon. The first time I had the distinct pleasure of being in this tent was when it was in Monticello, and it felt about this cold too. maybe a little colder in Monticello. The neat thing about this tent is, as I've had the opportunity over the last 2 years.
A person stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. They wear a dark blue vest over a white shirt. The background is dark blue.
To travel the Lewis and Clark Trail, attending other signature events. This tent is, and Core 2 seems to be the common boundary, the common element with all of the signature events. And you begin to make a lot of good friends, and you see a lot of great people all along the trail. I remember walking into the signature event in Louisville, and who did I see performing but Clint? And it just brought Montana right home into that tent with me, and it was just a wonderful feeling that all of us along the trail really are one big family, and we've all been working very hard over the last many years. Personally, for me it's 3.5 years, but I know a lot of people in the audience have been working a lot longer than that on the bicentennial commemoration, and we've all become one big happy family, and it's been a wonderful experience. I'd like to welcome you to one of the activities, the third day of the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial Signature event called Explore the Big Sky. We've been working on this event for 3.5 years, and like I said earlier, we've made a lot of good friends. The communities of Fort Benton, Great Falls, Loma, Geraldine, all those communities have bonded together to offer the world a unique and wonderful opportunity while they visit Montana, and to listen and hear and learn about the Lewis and Clark story that occurred here 200 years ago. Our goal when we began planning the signature event was to provide a cross-cultural approach to examining the expedition through as many different means as we possibly can. We also wanted to examine the story in as many different mediums as we possibly can. Anything from reenactments, and after today you'll be able to go out to Decision Point and see a first-person reenactment of the campsite that they had 200 years ago, through music, arts, dance, lectures, tours, float trips, community events, and events that are showcasing our Montana Indian culture. Over the 34 days, there are over 180 different activities that will be offered. Many of them are offered several times. And I'm proud to say that the Core 2 programming in this tent is one of those 180 different activities. And the people who have put the programming together, working with the Core 2 staff, have put together a fabulous slate. Every hour there will be a different performance in this tent. And then you can't forget the tent that has the exhibit in it either, because it's also extraordinary and certainly worth the time to spend in it and to learn and to see what it has to offer. I invite you and encourage you to go to as many different activities as you possibly can. Each one of them has been sublimely planned.
A person stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. They wear a dark vest over a white shirt. The background is dark blue.
Welcome to Explore the Big Sky. Welcome to Core 2. Welcome to Chouteau County. And it's also my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who's June Bailey, who's the field manager from BLM from Lewistown.
Thank you, Peggy, and good afternoon. I would like to extend a very special thank you to the City of Fort Benton, the National Park Service, and all of you.
A person wearing a gray blue jacket stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. The background is dark, and the setting appears to be an indoor venue or stage.
Who have planned and worked so hard to make this portion of the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial such a memorable time for everyone. I'd like to speak for just a few moments about one of our truly unique areas, the Little Missouri River. It's been described as the crown jewel of the entire Lewis and Clark Trail, and I'd also like to talk about our role here in Fort Benton. BLM's role in our working relationship with Fort Benton and our other gateway communities such as Big Sandy, Winifred, and Geraldine has been crafted by the history of our land, water, and people. Some of this history has sped by in centuries, some in decades, but it all leads us to where we are today and indicates where we may be tomorrow. Long before 1805, Native Americans used the Upper Missouri River and its surrounding lands as a pathway through their lives. The river and these lands provided many of the main components necessary for their daily survival. In 1805, Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery ventured through this portion of north central Montana, and their toil and adventure became part of the American legend. Unique portions of this area have remained largely unchanged in the nearly 200 years since they've traveled through here on their epic journey. In 1976, 149 miles of the Upper Missouri River were added to the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. To facilitate that special multiple-use legislation, the BLM was named as the managing agency. The citizens of Fort Benton and area landowners all along the Upper Missouri National Wild and Scenic River helped forge a management plan that addressed management issues and most of the social concerns surrounding this new designation. Fort Benton would naturally serve as a beginning point for many of those coming to north central Montana to enjoy this 149-mile-long wild and scenic river. These circumstances formed the perfect opportunity for even stronger partnerships between Fort Benton and BLM. The BLM managed the public lands in this region to provide livestock grazing, recreation, minerals, and timber. For several decades, the use of these public lands remained mostly dispersed and somewhat in the background of north central Montana. Then more people began boating and floating the Missouri River. Hunters began using these lands and waters more and more. The expectation of livestock, mineral, timber.
A person stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. They wear a tan and brown jacket and have brown hair with bangs. The background is dark.
And other recreation interests began to focus on public lands. To respond to these increasing expectations, the BLM had to focus our management of these lands and to become more of a presence. Partnerships and working relationships among interest groups, communities, and the BLM were in their formative stages. In the late 1970s, BLM increased our presence in Fort Benton. We had a seasonal staff that worked out of the back of a pickup, and it was located down by the boat launch. Later, we moved into an older trailer, which served as our contact station and office facility for this seasonal staff. A few years later, as the demand for services and information increased, so did our presence. As we increased the seasonal and volunteer staff and moved into the visitor contact station now located on Front Street. Throughout this evolution, the relationship between Fort Benton and BLM became stronger and stronger. We at BLM feel the river designation has been a positive development for the community and the BLM. In 1999, discussions about a special designation for the public lands adjacent to the Upper Missouri National Wild and Scenic River began to evolve. And in 2001, a presidential proclamation designated the Upper Missouri River Breaks National Monument. Lewis and Clark first encountered the breaks country of the monument on their westward leg. In his journal, Clark described the magnificent white cliffs, the abundant wildlife of the area, and on April 29, 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition recorded the first bighorn sheep observation by non-Indians in North America. This is one of the few landscapes along the entire Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail that remains remote and nearly as undeveloped as it was in 1805. The people of Fort Benton and area landowners are helping the BLM once again prepare a management plan for this newly created monument that will address today's resource issues and social concerns. We'll soon be breaking ground in Fort Benton for construction of the new interpretive center for the Upper Missouri River Breaks National Monument. This project is truly a partnership among the City of Fort Benton, the River and Plain Society, and the BLM. Our partnership with Fort Benton and all of our gateway communities has come far from what seems like just yesterday. As we look back and marvel at the accomplishments of Lewis and
A person speaks at a wooden podium bearing a circular seal that reads Tribes of Discovery with crossed tools and a handshake symbol. They wear a tan and brown jacket over a white shirt. The background is dark.
Clark, and how all of our ancestors evolved to meet the challenges of their day, it's a little easier to see how the BLM has evolved around the use and enjoyment of our public resources. We look forward to continuing our service to the public while strengthening our partnerships with all who use or care about the public lands. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this great event.
Some of you have heard me talk about Lewis and Clark in the past, and I've been giving Lewis and Clark talks since 1983, but this ain't one of them. I'm here to welcome you to good old Fort Benton, On occasion, I portray different historic figures, and today I'm sort of portraying Andrew Dawson, the Scotsman who was the factor here at Old Fort Benton, the trading post from 1854 to 1864, when he retired and went back to his native Scotland. So as I walked in the tent of many voices today, one of my compatriots said, "Bob, you can't come in with those Wellington boots on. It just doesn't look right." And I said, well, Andrew was from Scotland. These Wellington boots were made in Britain. Scotland and England joined in 1707 to make Great Britain, so these wellies are appropriate. Now, we've heard about curses today and we've heard about blessings, and the last 5 or 6 years has been a curse to the farmers in Chouteau County. This rain has been a blessing. The last 5 or 6 years of drought has been a blessing to those that recreate on the river outdoors. And to some of the event planners, the last couple of days have been a little bit of a curse because they've had to make some significant changes. All in all, we welcome the rain. But Fort Benton, and I'm going to be telling you the next 10 or 15 minutes, since I'm supposedly the keynote speaker, and Valerie said I can talk for an hour, but I'm only going to talk for 15 minutes. I'm just going to give you a few vignettes about our Fort Benton history. Fort Benton is used to curses. Block 25 in Fort Benton, which is the block directly across the front of the Chouteau County Courthouse, was also known as the Hoodoo Block. The first structures built on that block were a gallows, a wooden gallows in the 1860s, and a small wooden jail. And there was also a well that was dug on that block, which picked up the moniker of the Well of Golgotha for good reason. They used to stuff human bodies down there, both white and Indian. Anyway, Billy Hensel was hung at those gallows in...
A person in a dark jacket and purple patterned hat stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal featuring handshake imagery. They speak into a microphone in what appears to be an indoor venue with dark fabric backdrop.
In the early 1870s, and there was a squaw man who was, whose father-in-law came to town, got into an altercation. He was killed. He was put down there, but there were also white men that were put down this well. Then when the military came here after 1869, they were here until 1881, there were 3 soldiers, and after spending 20 years in the military in another life, I know how sometimes you can party hardy, and they got put in the jail overnight. Somehow the jail burned down and all 3 were burned to death. Then a fellow came along and he built a house on this block, on the Hoodoo Block, and he built a livery stable. Several weeks after he built his house, his wife died. About a month later, he died, and then his house burned down. Then another fellow came along and on the opposite end of this block built a furniture store. He no sooner had that built than a high wind came up in Fort Benton, and it completely destroyed that furniture store, but didn't touch any other block in the small town of Fort Benton in the 1870s. And then shortly after that, the livery stable burned down. There are now, I believe, 9 structures on that block, and the curse lifted right around the turn of the century. So Fort Benton has had its share of curses. Fort Benton is the oldest continuously occupied community in Montana, having been laid out as a trading post by Alexander Culbertson in the fall of 1846, and then it was constructed in the spring of 1847 from the logs from old Fort Lewis, which was a trading post just upriver on the south side of the Missouri. And it has been continuously occupied since that date. It was originally called Fort Clay and then Fort Lewis, named for Meriwether Lewis. But then on Christmas Day, 1850, Alexander Culbertson, the founder of that trading post and the factor or bourgeois, commissioned it Fort Benton in honor of Thomas Hart Benton, who was the retiring senator from the state of Missouri. He had been the senator from the state of Missouri from 1820 to 1850. He had helped out the fur trade company when they were having some problems in terms of trading whiskey in Indian country. So Benton was a supporter of the Chouteau family and the American Fur Company, and thus the fort was christened Fort Benton. Oddly enough, he had a grandson by the same name, Thomas Hart Benton, who was a painter. Some of you may have seen some of his work. He lived on into the 1970s, and then when he was about 80 years old Jack Lepley took him downriver in the late 60s.
A person wearing a dark jacket and a purple and pink striped hat stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal. They speak into a microphone inside a tent with dark fabric walls and overhead lighting.
At the mouth of the Marias, there was quite a bit of press there. There were some people, photographers and so on. And Benton proceeded to strip naked and jump in the water. He said he always wanted to jump in the river at the mouth of the Marias. And Lepley said, I don't think that's a good thing to do here. He said, gol darn it, I'm 80 years old, I can do anything I want. So the spirit of Thomas Hart Benton still lives. After Meriwether Lewis left this country in 1806, it was a full 25 years before the first trading post was established at the mouth of Marias, Fort Pagon. We don't have time to get into that story. The Blackfeet, this was Blackfeet country, and they did not want the Americans coming in and trapping their animals. They didn't mind trading. They'd been trading with the Hudson Bay Company for a century before, but they finally agreed that as long as you traded and didn't trap, you could establish a trading post. And there were a whole series of trading posts established up and down the river here between the mouth of the Marias and just above where Fort Benton is. But Fort Benton was the last one. It was a trading post from 1847 to 1869, and then the military contingent came in when they closed down Camp Cook at the mouth of the Judith, and from 1869 to 1881, there was a military contingent here. The first houses outside of the trading post or fort were built somewhere between 1858 and 1862. We think 1862 is probably a more correct time period. So in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you had a tremendous trade with buffalo robes and hides, with the Blackfoot, with the White Clay people, also called the Atsina, and the Grovon. And we had Clint give the blessing. The White Clay people were closely affiliated with the Blackfoot Confederation up until about 1863 when they had a falling out. So you had those kind of tribes trading here. But then when the first steamboat came in 1860, there were 148 different steamboats that arrived at this levee between 1860 and 1887 when the railroads came through and put the end to steamboating. And Ken Robinson is going to give a talk later on, not today, but one of these days forthcoming, about the whole background of steam.
A person in a dark suit and striped cap stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. They appear to be outdoors under a covered structure, with audience members visible in the background.
Steamboating and its legacy with regard to Fort Benton's history. Fort Benton's history is so rich that all I'm going to do is give you a couple of quick darters decade by decade, and no possible time to fill in the all the detail, which is incredibly interesting and rich. By the 1850s, you had a number of trails that led out of Fort Benton because of the river. Before the steamboats came, you had the Mackinaws, you had the pirogues, you had the keelboats, and the trails that developed in the 50s and 60s included the Fisk Wagon Road out of St. Paul and Minneapolis. You had the Cow Island Trail. You had the Graham Wagon Route that went on the south side of the river. You had the trail that went down to Colson, which became Billings. You had the Whoop Up Trail between about 1869 and 1874. That was the trail heading up into Canada. And you had the Mullen Trail, which led over to the gold fields and on over to Walla Walla, Washington, established between 1858 and 1862. Gold was discovered in Montana in a big way in 1862, and that's when the settlers started coming in, and the miners and the people who supported the miners, and the trade here started declining a bit because of that incursion of people. But there was a fellow named John Silverthorne who showed up in Fort Benton in 1858. And he came in, and Alexander Culbertson was down here at the time visiting. He was really at Fort Union at that time. Andrew Dawson was the factor. But he came in and he said, I've got about $1,000 worth of gold dust here. So Culbertson looked at it. He wasn't sure, but he decided to make the gamble. took in the gold dust for trade goods and so on, and Silverthorne left. They never saw Silverthorne before, and they never saw him afterward. And then when that gold dust was assayed, it was worth about $1,600. So Culbertson made out well on his gamble, but we don't know where he got that gold, so there might be some gold out there in them there hills that hasn't been discovered yet. So that's sort of an interesting vignette. In the 60s and into the early 70s is when all of the structures in Fort Benton were basically made of wood. It's when the bloodiest block in the west, and you can read the levee signs when you go down the levee, it describes all of this, was in existence. And you had the bordellos and the opium dens and the taverns going 24/7. And then toward the late 1870s, they started to bring in the churches and schools, and everything went to hell. The last big prosperous era for Fort Benton in this historic age was between, say, 1878 and 1884. That's the period when
A person wearing glasses, a purple baseball cap, and a dark blazer speaks at a wooden podium with a circular seal featuring a handshake design. A microphone is positioned in front of them against a dark interior background.
Steamboats were coming up here in a big way, as they had been. Nobody projected that railroads were going to put the end to the steamboat trade. It's just like the railroads in the 20th century forgot they were part of the transportation network. They thought they were just railroads and they'd never decline. Well, that's how they thought about the steamboat traffic. Between 1878 and 1884, there were 3 brickyards working full-time in the Fort Benton area, and all of the brick buildings that you see in Fort Benton, the historic buildings, were built during that time period. The old jail, which has been torn down, 1881. The Chouteau County Courthouse, which is the second oldest one in Montana, in the early 1880s. The Grand Union opened on November 2nd, 1882. If you walk down Front Street and you look over the drugstore, Benton Pharmacy, you'll see 1882 up there in the brickwork. When you walk down Front Street a lot of times, and this is true of any community, you want to look above the street level. Look at the second story level, same way in Great Falls, and you can see some of the historic structures that haven't been covered over. Like one guy told me one time, it's like an aluminum salesman came to town in the 1950s and changed all the storefronts. But at any rate, very rich history through that era. Then, quickly, after the decline of steamboating and so on, you had the open range era in the 80s and into the 90s. Very short period of time. But that's when Charlie Russell used to come here on visits, and you had Sullivan the Saddler, and you just had a lot of the stock associations and so on. This was a good open range country. And then the homesteaders came in roughly about 1908, 1909 into the teens. That was the big homesteading era. And when you go to the Museum of the Northern Plains, it will describe this whole era in detail. And it was also like this. There was a lot of moisture between about 1908 and about 1916 or 17 in the World War I, when the grains started coming in a big focus, because most of your early homesteaders, 75% of them, came from the Midwest. And they knew how to plant corn and beans and so on, and that's what they planted. And they had rain, and it worked. So you had a great influx of homesteaders. Then you had the war, things started turning over to wheat and grains, and then you had a drought from about 1919 into the mid-20s, and that's when you had a great exodus of people. And you started consolidating these units, as has occurred right on to the present time. Then we had the dirty 30s, and you go on into World War II, this county and area was very patriotic. 7 flag officers were born right here in Fort Benton, and you can read about them in our museums. Then after
A person wearing glasses and a purple cap stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal, speaking into a microphone. They wear a dark jacket over a light-colored shirt. The setting appears to be indoors with a dark fabric backdrop.
the war, you had the continual grain production, which Ken has alluded to. And this is the richest grain-producing county of the entire 56 counties in the state of Montana. So the agricultural heritage is rich. And then when they came in with CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program, That put these small communities under pressure because there wasn't the input costs and the products that you needed to purchase. But we're surviving. Our future is agriculture. It's heritage tourism. We have 2 wonderful museums. We have a homestead village, and we've got a partially reconstructed old Fort Benton. The oldest building in the state of Montana is the blockhouse at the old fort. So we've got a lot of interesting information provided through our levee signs, and there's a lot of good tours that are provided in this community. So welcome to Fort Benton, and as Andrew Dawson, it's my privilege to welcome you here, and since I died in 1871, I can now reascend. So thank you very much.
Okay, now I'm sad I'm up here because as a realtor, I have to reveal that hoodoo curse. But then you said it was lifted, so that's okay. And my dad, Wally Morger, happens to live on that block, so I don't know. I also wanted to tell everyone today to please, before you leave, we have some refreshments over here. And there's, when Sandra Padilla and I had, and Lori Hardy had said, what are we going to serve? And kind of have, you know, it always says, eat dessert first. So what are we going to have in the tent? Oh, well, it'll be so nice. We'll have lemonade, iced tea. Well, yesterday we switched over to hot chocolate, coffee, and hot tea. But I also want to bring your attention to some wonderful cookies made by a Chouteau County farm lady, Beverly Grass. And she comes from a wheat farm up at Box Elder. And she has graciously made us cookies in the shape of Montana that show the river, and there we are today with a little red dot, Fort Benton, Montana. Let's give her a round of applause. Before I turn the mic over to the stage director, Amy, I'd like to have just a little wrap-up. I have been
A person wearing glasses and a purple-brimmed hat stands at a wooden podium with a circular seal featuring crossed hands. They speak into a microphone in an indoor venue with dark fabric walls and overhead lighting.
very privileged to serve with the Explorer, the Big Sky, all the patrons and all the people that we've partnered with. Bob Archibald said something the other day, and it really was true about our whole journey that we put together. And that is that we started out with a destination, but what became important was the journey. And I think for us, we really realized what the journey was, and that was what we really have here, and Bob Dirk said it so eloquently, is our history, and Kenny Evans alluded to it with our agriculture. And then you coming here, whether you're commissioned or you have a chain of command to be here, or your ancestors have come here, we all have arrived at the same place. But it is about the journey. And we have learned so many things throughout this journey. We've learned to say yes, we've learned to be flexible, we've learned to wear different clothes, we've learned to wear different hats. And it's in that manner, in that spirit, that we have all come together to tell our story, beginning here in Fort Benton, Montana. And it is no mistake that Fort Benton is known as the birthplace of Montana, and I think it's so apropos then that the 10th National Signature Event for Explore the Big Sky starts here at Fort Benton, Montana in Chouteau County. I want you to, as you sit in the tent of many voices for the next approximately 10 days until June 12th, I want you to put on the stole, the ermine stole that was given to Lewis, and Bob Archibald, the noted historian and author, spoke so eloquently on that in Loma. And he put on that stole, and he was metamorphosed, and that means he was changed. The speakers that we have coming to you in the tent of many voices that has been put together very, very competently by Sandra Padilla, and thank you so much, Sandra, for participating in that. She has made sure that community was represented, she has made sure that the agencies are represented, and she's made sure that the tribal people are represented. Everything comes together. As you sit in the tent of many voices and go through the exhibits, put that on and let yourself just be wrapped in what is being told, the story that is told, and maybe, just maybe, will be changed also, and this will be our journey. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over now to Amy, the stage director.
On behalf of the National Park Service, I would like to thank all of our speakers today for...
A person wearing a purple baseball cap and dark jacket speaks at a wooden podium with a circular seal featuring crossed hands. They stand in front of a dark fabric backdrop under stage lighting.
Coming out, and I also would like to thank all of you for joining us. Next event that's going to happen here inside the Tent of Many Voices will begin in about 15 minutes or so, and that is going to be a film entitled Lewis and Clark, Confluence of Time and Courage. So I encourage you to come back for that film in about 15 minutes. I do have some schedules of programming inside the Tent of Many Voices for the next week. So if you'd like a copy of that schedule, please stop up and see me afterwards. In the meantime, we do have our child-sized keel boat, a Great Plains teepee, our exhibit tent for you to explore today. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.